Good morning, all. We're waiting on one more school, but I think we're going to get started, and then they come in, they'll just take a seat and join us. But welcome to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. How many of you have been here before? Good, great.
Need some more hands.
My name is Joe Horrigan. I'm Vice President of Communications and Exhibits here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and today we've got what I think is a great program, and I'll introduce our guests here in a few minutes, but I want to go over a few things. First of all, kind of give you an idea of what the program is about for those of you who may not know exactly, but really what we're here today is this is a program we call Heart of the Hall of Famer. And obviously we have a Hall of Famer who, as I said, I'll introduce to you in a moment. And we're really talking today about what it is to be a Hall of Famer in everyday life. We want to talk to you about how the 6 pillars of character can help you as you look to be a Hall of Famer in everyday life, whatever your aspirations are. Our guest has had tremendous success, and that success is an example of excellence. And that's what we really want to drive home today, is how you can strive for excellence in whatever it is you do, and how you should. And how we use the Hall of Fame here, as a matter of fact, as examples of excellence. Men who have gone into a chosen profession, have excelled at it to the point where they're being recognized in perpetuity, forever, because of what they did. But it's not just what they did on the football field that made them great. It's the character inside that helped them get there, helped them achieve their goals. So a lot of that is what we're going to be talking about today. We have some questions that have been submitted in advance, but we're also going to take some questions from the audience as we go through this. I'm going to, first of all, acknowledge the folks that are here. And we're going to ask you to give yourselves a little round of applause so we know you're really here, that you're awake and present. And then when the other school joins us, we'll certainly give them a chance to acknowledge themselves as well. First of all, Canton Local Schools, are you here somewhere? All right, let's come on, loud. All right, come on. Steubenville, show them how it's done. There we go. Maysville High School, Zanesville, Ohio. That was weak. All right, Mifflin High School from Columbus. Okay, they are not here yet. Okay. All right. New London High School, New London, Ohio. All right, gentlemen, welcome. Ginn Academy, I know we're waiting for them to get here as well. Okay. Alliance High School from Alliance, Ohio. There we go. Alliance, Ohio, University of Mount Union. How many championships now have they won in a row? My goodness, they are a powerhouse.
Mount Union?
Pierre Garçon.
Oh, yeah, I heard of it.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I heard of them. Joining us video conferencing, and I think we have a couple that we're waiting to tune in to as well, but I'm going to say your name, and if you could let us know that you're there. Lindsay Holy Family, Lindsay, Nebraska.
Yeah, we're here.
They're there. All right, very good. Welcome. Now this one, I'm going to really stumble on this one, guys. You ought to see the length of the name of this school. This is East Irondequoit High School, is that correct? All right.
Oh, you must have got it
Man,
right.
I nailed that. Wellington High School from Wellington, Ohio. Have you joined us yet? Okay, great. And Martin Luther King Elementary from Hanford, California. Are we there? That one looks like the one that's not quite joined us yet. Okay. All right.
Because it's 6:30 in the morning.
It's 6:30 in the morning, you're right. Good Lord. Boy. 9:45 was tough. All right, we've done that. Now, what I want to do, I want to remind you folks, those of you who may be using Twitter today, if you would use the hashtag Heart of Hall of Famer, Heart of HOFer, that'd be great. We appreciate that. Well, our guest speaker today, our guest, I don't want to call him speaker because he's going to interact with you, is Thurman Thomas. And Thurman Thomas is a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame who played with the Buffalo Bills and in fact was drafted by Buffalo in 1988. And that was always an interesting story because he was Buffalo's first pick that year. Although Buffalo didn't have a first round pick, they had given that up in a trade. So Thurman was their second round pick, which stunned America. And I remember it very vividly, as I'm sure he does. Everybody anticipated Thurman would go very, very early in the first round. But he was coming off an injury from when he played at Oklahoma State. So as great fortune would have it, I'm from Buffalo, so I really thought it was a great deal. It was fortunate for us. He slipped to the second round. because they were cautious about this injury. Here comes our Ginn Academy. Let's wait and let them in, and we'll pick up where we left off. Welcome, guys. And as they're getting settled in, we'll just wait till they get in so they can give themselves a round of applause. We want to give everybody a shout.
Funny how they walk in, everybody checking them out.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right, as our friends from Ginn Academy get situated. All right, guys. Now, since Ginn Academy just joined us, and I know a lot of you have been here before, we gave everybody else in the audience an opportunity to do a little shout out to yourself. So, Ginn Academy, welcome and hello, and let us know you're here. Let's hear it for Ginn Academy. All right. Guys, we just began introducing our special guest here today, who is Thurman Thomas, who, as I was telling the rest of the group, Thurman began his pro football career in Buffalo, New York with the Buffalo Bills back in 1988, where he was a second-round draft pick, and I was explaining that he was projected to be a very high-round pick in the first round that year, but because of an injury he sustained at Oklahoma State in his senior year, he fell on the draft, and that was the good fortune of the Buffalo Bills, that they were able to draft him. They had not anticipated him being available when they picked him at 40th overall. So that was good fortune for Buffalo. In just his second year, this guy who everybody thought might have a bum leg ended up rushing for 1,244 yards and caught 60 passes. Now, wide receivers in their second year rarely catch 60 passes. This was a running back who proved his versatility, which became his trademark through most of his career. In 1990, he led the NFL in all-purpose yards with 1,297 yards rushing and 532 yards receiving. So if you can imagine, this is a back, and this is before the day of today where the passing game has become such an integral part of the, of the game where, you know, everybody catches 90, 100 passes. This was a running back from out of the backfield. But the important thing is, how many have ever heard of the no-huddle offense? All right, it was the no-huddle offense that was perfected by the Buffalo Bills in the 1990s with Jim Kelly at quarterback and Thurman Thomas at running back, Andre Reed at wide receiver. This was an explosive offense like the NFL had not seen, and so much so that it really became the most popular, if you will, team for people to watch. This was not a phenomenon that was familiar to Buffalo. So Mr. Thomas led the team along with Jim Kelly and Andre Reed, and on defense, Bruce Smith and others, to 4 consecutive Super Bowls. Now, think about that for a minute. No other team has gone to 4 Super Bowls in 4 straight years. It never happened. And it'll probably never happen again. Because the difference in the game today, there's free agency where players leave. After they've had a couple of good years, they kind of leave. In Buffalo, they kept the nucleus of this powerful team together, and 4 times went back to the Super Bowl. And that's something we'll talk a little bit about perseverance, and when you get knocked down, how difficult it is to get back up and perform at a high level. That's something that this team and Thurman and his teammates did time and time again. When Thurman retired, he was named to the All-Decade Team of the 1990s, meaning that through that whole decade in which he played, he was considered to be among the best. When he retired, he was the 9th leading rusher in the history of the NFL. Now think about that again, because I come back to how versatile he was. As a running back, he was a fantastic running back. He was 9th in the history of the NFL. The NFL began in 1920. He was the 9th best out of all those players that came before him. But he was also such a great receiver, too. So it was a tremendous career that Thurman had that earned him, ultimately, election to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, which is the highest honor any person can achieve in the field of professional football. There's been over 24,000 men play this game. There's 287 in the Hall of Fame, and they're not all players. So that's an amazing accomplishment. He was born in Missouri City in Texas, now resides. He stayed in the Buffalo area, and he lives in Orchard Park, New York, with his wife, Patty. He has a daughter, Olivia, a daughter, Angel, and Anika, and a 12-year-old son, Thurman Lee III. Presently, Thurman is president and CEO of Legends Energy Group, and he is truly an ambassador. This is another, when we talk about those pillars of character, Thurman serves as an ambassador, not only for the Buffalo Bills, the team that he played his entire career, except for 1 year at the end. He left Buffalo just for one final year, but we don't count that anymore. He's also an ambassador for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. When you are elected to the Hall of Fame, you become a member of an elite fraternity, but you are also a figure that people look to. Like today, you're here to hear from him. And he carries himself in such a manner that he does himself proud, but he does his teammates here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the Hall of Fame proud in the sense of serving as an example of excellence. Something we're very proud of. Certainly, we appreciate all that he does for us. I'd like now, if we could run, we have a quick video that we'd like to show you just to give you an idea of Thurman's playing abilities. And this will just take a few seconds.
Thurman Thomas was the 8th running back taken in the 1988 NFL Draft. When he retired in 1999, he was the NFL's 9th all-time leading rusher. In 1991, after gaining over 2,000 yards from scrimmage, Thurman was named the NFL's MVP. He dominated again in 1992, leading the NFL in yards from scrimmage for an unprecedented 4th consecutive year. The 5-time Pro Bowl selection finished his stellar 13-year career with 88 total touchdowns and was elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2007.
Notice he didn't spike that ball. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Thurman Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, I didn't spike that ball because that was like the 3rd year that I was in the league. But my rookie year in 1988, I scored my first NFL touchdown. And obviously, watching the greats grow up, you see a lot of them spike the ball. I spiked the ball. I'm coming to the sideline, and Marv Levy, who was my head coach, he's doing this. He said, "Come here." And I go over, and he said, you know, "Why did you spike the ball?" And I said, "Coach," because I always told myself if I ever made it to the National Football League, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to spike it. And his words were to me, "That's great, but don't ever do it again. Act like you've been there before." And so that was my only spike that I ever, and that's why I didn't spike the ball there, because I knew what Marv had said, act like you've been there before, be a professional and not try to show up the team or show up the other team, act like you've been there before. And so I never spiked or danced or anything after that. So, I'd just like to thank everybody for being here. Like Joe said, you know, when I got into the Hall of Fame, it was the ultimate goal. Even though I went to 4 straight Super Bowls and, you know, being a team that didn't win a Super Bowl, but this right here is my ultimate prize. And when these guys call me to do anything, I'm here. You know, I'm here because I want to help people. I want to talk to people. I want to see people. I want to visit people, and that's been my entire life. I grew up in Houston, Texas. I was the only child growing up. My mom and dad got divorced when I was 4 years old, and so it was me and my mom for a long period of time. I lived with my grandmother, my cousins, my aunts. So I was moved around a little bit, but during that whole time that I was moved around, I learned a lot. I grew up quickly. A lot of people always say, well, you're 12, but you're very mature for your age. It's because of the moving around, but also being around good people and great people that cared about me. And so, like I said, I'm always happy to do anything that I can to help the Pro Football Hall of Fame, to talk to young students, to talk to young coaches, both male and female. With that, we'll get started.
Let me just go over, and we mentioned the 6 pillars of character. And today, that's kind of where our focus is going to be on those character traits that we talk about. If you can imagine sport and how that is an example of how those characteristics can be learned through sport, I think that's really one of our focuses. And those character traits are trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. Now, to just someone hearing those characteristics, you think, well, how does sport relate to that? And I can only say that, if you think about a team sport, and pro football or football in general is the ultimate team sport. And in any team sport where there's multiple participants, trustworthiness. I mean, you have to trust your teammates. Respect. Thurman just talked about showing respect. You don't spike the ball in the guy's face. Responsibility. You're responsible to do your job. Without you doing your job, everybody else's job becomes more difficult. Fairness. That's what rules are all about in sport. We're taught about fairness. We're taught about fair play. Caring. Obviously, we care for our teammates. If you think about, and I'll make this transition a little bit, if you think about team sport and even the military, there's a lot of similarities in the sense of, there's a lot of people you talk about, hey, we're going to war for our guys in sport. But in real life, with the military, there's nothing more strong than the bond that's caused between, or that results between men and women in arms. And then citizenship, just like Thurman was just talking about, coming back and making sure he returns to the community that treated him so well. The community's the larger community, not just his home of residence, but the larger community of fans and people who looked up to him during his career. So those are all characteristics that I think that not only Thurman, but sport teaches us. And if you don't mind, Thurman, if you could just take one of those characteristics, trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship, and kind of share with the audience, what any one of those that you think best exemplified sport.
Well, I think with me, it's always been the respect factor. Respecting your opponent, respecting their coaches, but also respecting your teammates and your coaches. When I started playing this game, that's one of the things that I always talked about, and always is I respected the other team no matter what. And not only with a football team, but I think with me, it was just in general in life. Just respect others. They may not agree with you, with what you're saying or what you're doing, but I think there has to be a level of respect. We have to respect each other as human beings. And I think that it's not happening really a lot in these day and ages, the respect factor. I did it when I was I respect everybody that I come in contact with. I might not know you. I don't know really anybody in this room, but I respect you because that's just the character and the way that I was raised. And I continue to do that with my kids and my family and everybody that I'm around. So I think with me, respect is probably, out of all these 6 traits that we're talking about, respect is very, very high on my list.
That's something we hear consistently from, we ask new electees to the Hall of Fame. In fact, a new class was just elected this past February, and they'll be enshrined here come August. And we were asking them about some of the characteristics that they felt sport instilled in them. Respect was one, integrity was another. So these pillars that we're talking about today, these are just 6. There are many, many more.
Right.
I think, we use the word excellence. I think that's something we all strive for. Now, I've got some questions that have been submitted by some of the schools, Thurman. If you don't mind, I'm gonna go Wellington High School from Wellington, Ohio. Where are you at, Wellington? Are you the one that didn't come? All right. We're gonna use your question anyway. This question was posed that in your life, did you ever have to deal with losing or adversity, and how did you overcome that and get to where you are today? Outside of football, what, if you can relate to them about how you picked yourself up after some adversity in your life.
Well, I tell you what, when I was talking earlier about, being a single, only child, living with my mom, I dealt with some adversity early on in my career. Actually, when I first got drafted by the Buffalo Bills, at the time, I spent the last 3 or 4 years kind of in a junior high school area with my grandmother, and my great-grandmother. And 2 days after I got drafted, she passed away. And so I was with her for a long period of time, and she was always the one that told me, like, you're going to make it. You're going to make it to the National Football League. So I had to deal with that. I mean, I was at a point in my career where I just got drafted where it was almost to the point where, you know what, I don't know if I can do this, because she was such an important part in my life of guiding me in the right direction. So going into the National Football League, that was a little bit of my adversity. And then I had an uncle of mine who I had worked out with, who had trained me. He passed away. And so my first year was almost like a train wreck. But I had to overcome all that. And I think with having a great family, a great support system around me, really helped me, get through that tough time. And like you say, with the adversity of losing, I mean, you don't know how, you haven't been in my shoes, because, it's difficult losing. Just think about this. Losing 4, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 Super Bowls in a row. That's that can bring just about anybody down, but I think it picked us up, because we had great players on our team. Not necessarily great players, but great people, great coaches. And so after you losing 4 Super Bowls, yeah, it becomes a little bit, it's painful, it hurts. But being in a great city like Buffalo and having great friends around, it made it a little bit easier. It was tough, but it was a little bit easier to overcome those 4 Super Bowl losses.
If you can imagine and think about, and Thurman says losing, and that's a word, I don't particularly like that word, because
I don't like it either.
Because what they accomplished in those 4 travels, those 4 journeys to the Super Bowl, they were the best in the AFC 4 consecutive years. They were AFC champions. And yet that one game, just like in life, one thing doesn't define you. One game doesn't define you. But unfortunately, we tend to define other people.
Right.
And that's something that I think Coach Marv Levy did a masterful job of inspiring his team.
Yeah.
But could you talk a little bit about how the team bonded and how important that was to the success?
Well, I tell you what, I think losing 4, it brought us really close together. I mean, to give you an example of how close it brought us together is that Jim Kelly, our quarterback, who is battling cancer right now, he usually puts on a golf tournament. Well, it's going on his 27th year. And we have about, I think it's 36 guys that played in all 4 Super Bowls. And with a couple of them passing away, every year we're right at the 30 mark. 30 guys come back. And that's how it had really brought us close together, brought us closer together, remained friends for a long period of time. And I tell everybody all the time, well, yeah, losing 4 stinks, It hurts, but I think as players, we've gained an entire family of all those guys that were on that football team, that were on that championship football team, that won 4 AFC championships in a row. We became more of a family. We bonded together, and we still have that love that we had for each other when we were playing back in the day. We still have that same love and affection that we have for each other to this day, to this point. And like I said earlier, our quarterback, Jim Kelly, is in the hospital right now in New York battling cancer. And he's been there for about, I think he's been there for about 2 weeks. And there have been, last I counted, there had been 21 guys already visit him in New York who have just dropped everything to go visit a teammate who is obviously dealing with a lot of issues. So the closeness, the love, the affection that we have for him, it will never wander now. I've been around guys who have won Super Bowls, and those guys don't even talk to each other hardly. And so I think that makes our team just a little bit more special, even though we didn't win one.
You know, and the thing that professional athletes, and Thurman and I were talking a little bit about fantasy football before we came down here and how that's changed the way people watch football. But, you know, we forget sometimes about the human element. We see 11 men on each side lining up with helmets on. We don't really see faces, and we just assume that they don't have emotions, that they don't care, that they're not involved, and nothing could be further from the truth, I think, is, you know, what you realize as a team player. I have another question, again, from Wellington, who unfortunately didn't make it here yet, but I'd like to ask you, Thurman, if you wouldn't mind, and you've hit on some of them, but if you could take characteristics, not even necessarily the ones we talked about, but for what you consider in life, the 3 most important characteristics of success, whether it was while you were a player or since.
You know, like I said, there could be a lot of different characteristics of, you know, life in general. You know what, my one, and I hit on it early, and I probably continue to hit on it for the whole time that I'm up here and for the next session, is that, you know what, just caring about people and caring about their situation, whatever it may be, whether it may be good or bad. You know, one of the things that I've done since I've moved back to Buffalo is that, you know, when I played, I really didn't have the time to give back to the community because, you know, I was obviously playing football and had work to do. But since I've been back, you know, I've tried to hit almost every single charitable school organization that I've had throughout the week. You know, I try to hit about 10 or 15 schools, unannounced visits, just tried to give back to the community, which I did when I was playing where I didn't have the time, but now I have the time. And I think me, personally, it's always definitely about caring for other people. I mean, that's been my life. You know, that's been the thing that I like seeing people smile. I like putting smiles on people's faces. You know, I visit Roswell Hospital in Buffalo once a week, unannounced visit. You know, I don't need the cameras or the TV crew all around. You know, I think that's the one thing about me and my family is that, you know, we care about other people so much that we're willing to do just about anything. And whether it's, you know, show up at a charity event, show up something at a hospital, you know, and like I said, we can sit up here and talk about a whole variety of things, but I think caring about other people, you know, that's where it hits home for me.
All right, let's go to the audience. Excuse me. Do we have a question from anybody out here that we might want to pose to Thurman? Don't be shy.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. Oh, there's a guy in the back there. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Thurman, I learned today that you were the 40th draft pick
Yes.
out of your draft class. Can you just talk a little bit about What was that like, knowing that there were 39 picks ahead of you and nobody called your name? Did that give you extra incentive, or how do you hang in with something like that?
Well, actually, it did give me a little extra incentive because I was supposedly from a lot of NFL teams supposed to go in the first round. I was supposed to. Atlanta said that they were going to take me. The LA Rams said they were going to take me. My hometown, Houston, the Houston Oilers at that time, they were going to take me. And so, as you said from the clip, like 8 other running backs went ahead of me. And so I used to watch the draft. I was, to tell you how long ago this was, you know how they have, like, they'll go to, like, ESPN will be at somebody's house, or they'll be, at their school or something. I was actually the first one to do that back in 1988 at Oklahoma State University, back in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And so as they're going through the draft, my name is not being called. After the first round is over, ESPN calls me. Well, they had the camera there. They called, who was it? This lady named Andrea Kramer. They called her and said, this is really embarrassing, because ESPN and everybody else thought that I was going to go in the first round, and I didn't. And they asked me, would you like for us to leave? And I said, no, you're going to sit in here with me this whole entire time. You're not going anywhere, And so I was actually the first one to get put on NFL, ESPN, to do, what they're doing now. And so eventually I got picked in the 40th player picked in the second round of the draft in 1988. And so my roommate was Leonard Smith. He had got drafted back in 1983 or 4. So he was about 4 or 5 years older than I was. And I used to have before every game that Saturday night, I used to watch the clip of leading up to when I was picked. I wouldn't watch the entirety because it's like 3 hours long, 3 or 4 hours long. So I would just watch, like, when they started the second round, I would just watch that clip before the game on Sunday. And that kind of, so my thing was, I'm going to show all these teams who passed on me that they shouldn't have passed on me.
Great question. Thank you. Do we have something else out here from the audience?
Nobody got any
Yes,
questions?
oh, they will. They just got to loosen
All the
up.
coaches?
Yeah.
You see a lot of times adversity can cause divisiveness amongst teams, amongst families. What do you think was present with your team after 4 Super Bowls, coming up on the losing end, that was present that caused you guys to become close, I guess?
Well, I tell you what, the one thing that really kept us close is that, it started with our owner, Mr. Ralph Wilson Jr., who passed away this past Saturday at the age of, he was 95. And he bought the Bills for $25,000. And now they're worth $900 million. So it was a great investment. But at the funeral for Mr. Wilson, our owner, you can hear, and when you heard everybody got up and talk about Mr. Wilson, the number one word that you heard always was family. Family, being close to your teammates, being close to the people that run your organization. And I think with that, it just kind of fell right into the players. It went from Ralph Wilson to Marv Levy to Bill Polian, to Jim Kelly. Jim Kelly, huge family man, had 5 brothers. And I think, being in a community like Buffalo, where, if something happened on a Thursday, somebody would do an event Saturday, and everybody would show up. And it was just a family atmosphere, and that's just the way that, we became, after a game, go over to Jim Kelly house, you have 50, 60, 70 people there, but they're mostly football players and their families. So we just, the one thing that we did not allow was that we never talked bad about any of our players. Everything was always positive, even if it was, a bad situation. Everything was always positive. And I think when you have when we had a mixture of older players, younger players, in between players, it all clicked together. It all clicked together.
Anybody out here? Over here, yes, here.
Yes, ma'am.
Here.
If I had a chance to play football again, would I?
Or would you stay living the life you're living?
Well, I wish I could have played now for the money that they're making now, but I probably would. I probably would if I had a chance to do it over again. I probably, even with knowing about the concussions and all the other things, yeah, I would definitely play again and go and definitely play running back again. You know, it's something that I loved growing up. I didn't actually start playing football until 8th grade. And I was trying to be the next, well, before that, the next Derek Jeter. I loved baseball. And so I didn't start playing football until 8th grade. So, but if I had a chance to do it all over again, yeah, I would continue and I would go and play football again. Yeah.
Okay, we have a question right over here. Yes, sir.
Did you play any other sport rather than football?
I played basketball, baseball, and I ran track. Those were the 3 sports that I played.
And we have a question over here.
First of all, I know you're very busy, so thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come out here and talk to us.
Thank you.
And if it wasn't for the NFL, if it wasn't for football, what type of career field do you think you'd be in today?
Oh, if that's an easy one there, I mean, my dad drove Greyhound bus. My stepfather drove UPS. So I was going to definitely be some type of a rig guy driving 18-wheelers down. I had at least 4 or 5 uncles that drove 18-wheelers, you know, worked for UPS, Greyhound. So, you know, I got an RV right now, so that's, you know, I love driving, you know. So I would definitely be, you know, Greyhound or a trucker or something like that. My mom, she didn't drive, but, you know, she worked at the post office for 40 years. She used to drive the trucks around delivering the mail, so it would definitely be something like that, yeah. But I enjoy driving a big rig. I've driven tractors before and all that type of stuff, so, you know, being from Texas, I am a little country, so.
I've seen him run. I saw him run a lot, and the way he broke through lines, I don't think I'd want to see him in a truck. You know, this is not a guy I want driving behind me. We have a question over here. Yes, sir.
Who was your favorite running back growing up?
Actually, I had 2. Being from Houston, my favorite running back was Earl Campbell. But the reason why I wore 34 was because of the late Walter Payton. So growing up in Houston, obviously being in Texas, Earl Campbell playing for the University of Texas and playing for the Houston Oilers. You know, he was my idol growing up and didn't get to meet him until I got elected into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Him and also Walter Payton. We used to run the hills and stuff like that. I started running the hills, so Earl Campbell and Walter Payton were my favorite 2 running backs.
How many of you have heard of Earl Campbell? How many have heard of Earl Campbell? Okay, Earl Campbell, for those of you who don't know, Earl Campbell really defined the position of fullback when he played. He was a power runner. But now imagine this, he was about maybe 6 foot tall, maybe 5'11".
5'11".
His thighs, he had 34-inch thighs. I mean, those
Think about your waist right now.
Yeah, he had 2 waists.
Yeah.
And he was the most punishing runner I've ever seen, as far as hitting the line and dragging people with him. How many have heard of Walter Payton? His nickname Sweetness. That big mural on the exterior of our building, that big drawing there, that's Walter Payton. And not only was Walter, he was the leading rusher when he retired. Not only was he a great running back, but we're talking about character. This man had more character in his little finger than most people, you know, have in their entire heart. But that, again, I think it goes to to the greatness. You know, he was called Sweetness because of his attitude. And I think that's an important thing to remember. These players, they play it's a contact sport. But to have a nickname Sweetness also indicates that they can be very, very human. They are just like you and I. So just thought I'd bring that up. We had a question back here, I believe. Yes, sir. Again, Ginn Academy.
Yeah. What was your 40-yard dash?
My 40-yard dash?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Man, I think it ran like a 4.5 or something. Yeah, I wasn't very fast. No, I wasn't fast at all. 4.5. I know guys that they run 4.3s, 4.4s. Yeah, I was a 4.5 guy. Yeah. Not very fast. Fast enough, though, I guess.
You know who Thurman's backup was at Oklahoma State? Does anybody know? There we go. We heard it over here. Who said that?
Yeah. I'm actually, I guess, the only guy to ever keep Barry Sanders on the bench.
Barry Sanders was his backup.
Yeah, so.
Gives you an idea. Over here, Mike. We got some.
How old was you when you started playing football?
How old are you in your 8th grade?
Me, I was 40.
14? So, yeah. I got a late start. Like I said, I was a baseball player. I knew I was going to the major leagues. And so I was on the bus getting ready to go home. And the bus stopped. My gym coach came out and got me off the bus and said, "We would like for you to play football, at least try." And so all my friends were doing it. So I got off the bus and I had no idea how to put pads in. I have no clue about any of that stuff. And so the trainers and equipment people, they got my stuff ready. And actually the first time that I touched the football, he said, "We want you to play running back." The first time that I touched the football, it was a live scrimmage to see who can play and who couldn't play or whatever. Mm-hmm. And like the first time that I touched the ball, I went like 60 yards for a touchdown. And so I turned back and I looked, everybody's high-fiving and just having fun. So I was like, well, I guess baseball is over. So I'm gonna start playing football. And so years later, I jumped back to about 4 years ago. My little son wanted to play football. So I'm like, all right, let's give it a go. Let's see what happens. So even though they were practicing, the first time that he got in the game and he carried the ball, he went 70 yards for a touchdown. And so it was kind of like, wow, it's kind of
father like son.
Yeah. But turns out, well, he's 12 now. And guess what sport he likes? Baseball. Baseball is his favorite sport. And so how the tides have turned,
Yeah.
I grew up wanting to play baseball, and now my son's favorite sport is baseball. So hopefully he
What
can
goes
continue.
around comes around.
Yeah, what goes around comes around, yeah.
We have a question, if I can go to our video conferencing school, and I'm going to try this name again, Irondequoit High School. I hope I'm saying that right. But this question was posed by one of the students there at Thurman. It says, what sense of gratitude did you receive when you were inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and how has it impacted your life?
Well, you know, it has impacted my life tremendously. Not only from a standpoint of, yeah, it's only 287 Hall of Famers out of 24,000 players, contributors, owners. It definitely has opened up a lot of doors for me to go to schools, to go to charity events, to visit just about anywhere I want to go. When you have that Hall of Fame attached to your name, it can open a lot of doors for you. But even when I come back here, I sit in the back of the room for a reason, and it's because there's still guys in the Hall of Fame that I would love to meet, that I still look at and be like, oh my God, I can't believe that I'm in the Hall of Fame with Don Maynard. I mean, some of y'all might not know who Don Maynard is, but, I'm in the Hall of Fame with, one of my best buddies, Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders, the list can go on and on and on. And that's what I'm really, really thankful for, is that having an opportunity to come and meet the players that played before me, and to see to see how they carry themselves. Because, these were the guys that I looked up to, whether they were running back, defensive back, quarterback, anybody like that. And so it is very, very, it's just an unbelievable feeling. I wish everybody can go through the same feeling every year that I go through. I mean, even from the new guys that are coming in this year, it's just very humbling to be sitting back there and looking at all these guys that played before you and how their lives have turned out. So in that sense, it's been really, really special for me to be a part of such of a great fraternity.
If I can add to that just a second, if I could ask you a question about, the guys you come back and you admire and you look at and you say, and we had said earlier at the outset that they're all examples of excellence, but can you think of an occasion when you looked at a player, not as a player, but as a man, and said, there's a guy I want to be like? Was there ever a moment like that in your career?
I think it would have to be, wow. When you said that, there's so many guys just popped up in my head. But if it had to be, I would definitely want to be like, and I want to try to follow in the footsteps of my owner, Ralph Wilson. I mean, just, when I got there, I think he was 72 years old. And just to see how he handled himself, I mean, you talk about a guy who, after every single Super Bowl that we lost, coming into the locker room, and his expression didn't change at all. And you found out that he went to like every single player in that locker room and said almost the exact words to we would not have been here if it wasn't for you. And so Mr. Wilson is one of those guys where I was like, yeah, I want to be like that guy. And then when you hear, after he passed away, what he did for so many people. I mean, not just in the Buffalo area, not just in the Detroit area. Well, he gave the Hall of Fame a new building out here. Yep. But it was across the country. I mean, he was a World War II vet. So you know what he was about. He was about people. And yeah, I mean, and I still, that's what I remember. That's what I'm trying to continue to do with my life, is to continue to not only help people in Buffalo, here in Canton, Houston, it's all over the world. I've been to, a couple of years ago, I went to Iraq. That was something that I wanted to do. My wife and kids didn't want me to go, but I wanted to go. So I went to Iraq for a week, went to Kuwait, and just to visit our troops and visit the Iraqi people. So, and Mr. Wilson went over there too. It was a couple of years before that, but he went over there too. And so now I'm just kind of following the footsteps of I want to continue to always give back to the community and do as much as I possibly can before I leave this earth.
See, and without thinking about it, there's two pillars of character. Caring, a man who showed how much he cared, and he did it quietly. I've known Ralph a very long time as well, and he's a very, very humble man, but community, too. That was a big part of his life, big part of Thurman's life. And I'll just share with you a story about Ralph Wilson. This is the owner, recently just passed away, owner of the Buffalo Bills. Thurman mentioned he served during World War II. Ralph Wilson was a commander on what was called a minesweeper, which is a wooden boat that goes out into the ocean. He's out in the Pacific. He served in both the Pacific theater of the war and the Atlantic theater. And these minesweepers would literally be out there looking for mines that might attach themselves to the metal ships and explode. So it was a very, very hazardous duty. But during his service, he was called to Pearl Harbor right after the attack. His small wooden boat was sent into Pearl Harbor, one of the most devastating events in American history. And then later on, he was the first American to set foot on soil in Hiroshima after the first atomic bomb was dropped on Japan, literally ending World War II. He went there, he was told to go there, and as he told me once, he says, I didn't know if they were going to salute us or shoot us. And so he said, you know, he went to this devastated area where radiation levels were extremely high. Still, it was part of his duty. And then the third event during his military career, he was actually on the USS Missouri, where the surrender of the Japanese army was signed to the United States. So three of the most iconic moments, three of the most important moments in World War II history. This one man was at each of those, but he never shared that with people. That was just a part of his life. He didn't walk around and say, I was this, I did that, and so on. He was just a very humble man. I think that's a very, very high character person, and Thurman pointed out to him as somebody that is a role model for him. We have role models in this room right now, coaches, teachers, and all of you will probably be a role model to somebody in your life. So that's important to remember those characteristics of caring and citizenship. Let's go to another question out here in the audience. Over here we have, sorry, sir. Go ahead.
Growing up in life, what was your number one goal? Like, what did you want to accomplish?
What's that?
Your number one goal, what did you want to accomplish when you were
My
little?
number one goal, what I wanted to accomplish, I just wanted to be successful at anything I wanted to do. Whatever I was going to do, whether it was, like I said, baseball, basketball, football, I wanted to be successful at it. I wanted to be, you know, at the top of my class, you know. Going back to, you know, my family and everything like that, you know, my mom was hard on me, especially with grades, being in school, you know. I think I went through 4 years of high school and didn't miss a day of high school. You know, I would literally have to be on a deathbed for my mom not to let me go to school. So I think 4 years in high school, I never missed a day. But education was important to my mom. I graduated, you know, high school. I'm actually taking classes right now. I have 24 more hours to go before I graduate from college. You know, it's been kind of a long period of time between Oklahoma State and now, but it was a promise that I made to my mom. But everything that I wanted to do, I wanted to be successful at it. I wanted to try to be the best at it. And if I couldn't be the best at it, whoever it was, to congratulate them at being the best at it, to beating me. So, but that was it. Yeah, you got more?
Yeah. Do you think of yourself as one of the best running backs?
Do I think of myself as one of them? No, I don't. That's another trait that, you know, let others talk about you than to talk about yourself. I've never did that. I never will do that. You know, I will always say, you know, Emmett's better or Barry's better, Walter's better. You know, I'll never pat myself on the back for anything. And I really don't want that. You know, I just want to be a guy that says, you know what? He never talked about himself. He talked about others more than anything. And he did more for other people. And, you know, that's how I live my life. So, I mean, you know, I've had friends who we would be somewhere or whatever, and, you know, they'll start, well, you know who this is? And I'll just get up and, like, walk away, you know. I just hate people, like, talking about me, you know, because it's not about me. It's about what I'm trying to do as a human being and what I'm trying to do to help people.
Okay, if I'm going to go to another video conferencing school, Wellington High School, and this question, Thurman, comes from someone there and says, looking back on your career, I'm sure there were many times where you may have failed. Is there one particular situation where you failed, and if you could go back and change something that you did to change that outcome from failure to success? So I guess we've talked a little bit about that, but I think they're looking for a specific instance where you feel like you may not have succeeded, that if you could have changed something, what would it have been?
Well, I mean, obviously, if you're talking about football, yeah, I mean, you know, and I enjoy talking about, some of the things that happened throughout my career or what have you. But yeah, if it's one of the things that I can change, that I can probably change the outcome of a certain game. And I've told, like, I tell my teammates this all the time. I think it was the last Super Bowl that we played against the Cowboys, where we were leading, I think 13-6 at halftime, coming out in the third quarter. End up getting hit by Leon Lett, end up fumbling the ball. Dallas picked it up and ran it in for a touchdown. So the game was tied 13-13. And after that, they just kind of the momentum just shifted from us to them. They went on to win their second consecutive Super Bowl, 30-13 in Atlanta over us. But I wouldn't change. I would change that, but the one thing that I am most proud of in that moment, in that situation, was that after the game, when we're all in the locker room, I was kind of like the vocal guy of the team, like, the guy that would, tell everybody to be quiet. Somebody had something to say or whatever. I got up in front of the whole team and apologized for the mistake that I made in the football game. And to see grown men cry, that sticks home for me, because I knew that I had made a mistake in the game. And I know we would probably be talking about in life or whatever, but the one thing that sticks out to me is that, I went up and apologized in front of the whole team, and to see my teammates come up to me afterwards and cry like on my shoulder and tell me, hey, don't worry about it, you're still our guy, you're still the guy that we will continue to depend on. And so that right there is a moment that will, I know we've been talking about life, but
Well, that is life. That's all about caring.
It's all about caring. And so that was, I guess, a play that I wish I can have back, but the outcome of my teammates, crying, patting me on the back and telling me everything is going to be okay is something that that'll be with me for the rest of my life.
If I could, I would just use that one play to, again, bring back those 6 pillars. Trustworthiness. His teammates stuck by him and said, you're still the guy we trust. Respect. What more respect can you get from a display than that? Responsibility. He stood up, took responsibility. Fairness. His teammates are saying it's not all on you. That's fairness. Caring. Great demonstration of caring. And well, citizenship within that community of football players, there's nothing stronger than that bond. So again, I just come back to the using examples of excellence like Thurman and other Hall of Famers and just people in your life, your coaches, your teachers. All of these characteristics can be seen in everyday life, but think about it when you see it and put it into your heart and carry it, learn from it. I think that's a great lesson. I think that's a great answer. We have time for a few more questions. Do we have something over here? Okay.
What was your mindset following the knee injury your senior year at Oklahoma State?
My mindset? Oh, at that point in time, my mindset after I hurt my knee going into my junior year, my mindset was, oh, my career is over with, But on the flip side of that, my mindset went from, when you go to school, you're like, okay, I'm a football player. So when I hurt my knee, I actually told myself, well, this could be the turning point in my career where I might not make it to the National Football League. And so after that, I kind of was reminded of what my mom said. I actually put my academics ahead of football, because I actually thought, having a knee injury, there's no way that I might not even make it, have a chance to play in the National Football League, because sometimes it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't go the way that you want it to go. And so my mindset was, okay, look, I got to do something here. You know, just in case I don't make it, I want to have an opportunity to be close to where I'm graduating. Because I didn't redshirt. I was a 4-year starter at Oklahoma State, so I didn't redshirt. So I knew it would be very difficult for me to graduate in 4 years. And had I redshirted, it would probably been a different story because I had that extra year. So my mindset went from, okay, no more, forget the football stuff. I'm going to go out and continue to practice, continue to be with my teammates, but I got to get as close as I possibly can to getting that degree. And so my mindset was, it was bad for a while, but it also got stronger too because of the guy that we talked about earlier, Barry Sanders. So I had to keep my toes up on Barry Sanders, but eventually, you know, everything worked out. Yeah.
Way in the back, we have another question.
Don't ask me how much I bench press either. No, I'm good. Besides my first touchdown, my most memorable touchdown, it'd probably be in the first Super Bowl that we played. Obviously, from that point on, the Buffalo Bills had never been to a Super Bowl, so I think it was a Super Bowl run that I had in Super Bowl 25, that gave us the lead going into the fourth quarter. So that would, besides that first one, it would definitely be the one in Super Bowl 25. I saw some Giants in here somewhere over here. Yeah, I saw, some Giant fans over here. Yeah, yeah, they're LT over there. Yeah, so. But that was probably our most memorable one. Yeah.
An interesting thing about Super Bowl 25 in Thurman is that in that Super Bowl, Otis Anderson was the MVP, running back with the New York Giants, but most of the media was saying that it should have been Thurman Thomas, but it was difficult to give it to a player on the losing team. But Thurman had a fantastic game that, you know, was there crying for you. I was one of those men crying for you.
Yeah, I was at that point in time, you didn't realize, you know, that, you know, it usually goes to the winning team or whatever player, but like, I think it was a week later that, oh God, what was his name from Sports Illustrated?
Paul Zimmerman.
Paul Zimmerman. He said, I got a letter from him saying, you do know somebody has won the MVP on a losing football team. Actually, he was the only guy that voted for me for that Super Bowl, but he did. I didn't even know that.
Paul was a man of conviction, or is a man of conviction,
Yeah,
so that
yeah.
it came from good character person.
Yeah.
Do we have another question right here? Yes, sir.
You know what? No, that's a good question because, you know, I know we've talked about, you know, being in the Super Bowl, being in some Pro Bowls, you know, being in some exciting games, you know, like the Houston comeback when we were down 35-3, came back to win it 41-38. But I think my most memorable football game for myself, and I talked about it about 15 minutes ago, was the football game that I had in Iraq. We actually went over and played a football game in Iraq. It was flag football, but still it was football. And to be over there, to playing with the troops, and be playing with the Iraqis, that was probably the most memorable, best football game I probably ever played in. And just from the simple fact that when we were there, we had a little scare. But you can just see all the love and all the attention, not only that we were getting, but the whole troops and everybody that was on there. We had a little bomb scare. But you can see why there are troops and why they're fighting for the country. Because, you know, they were more trying to protect us, the football players that were there. You know, they were the ones that you can tell that were willing to give up their lives for us. And to see that it was pretty amazing. Everything was in order. I mean, they told us where to go, what to do. I mean, everything was perfect. And to see that during a football game,
Why?
yeah, it was. But after it was over, everything was back the same. Went back out there and continued. Went back out there and
Game must go
continued.
on.
The game wasn't over yet. Went back out there and continued to play in the game, and it was actually like, okay, it happened. Let's get back to what we're really here for, and it was pretty special.
Mike, I think we have one more here. I think we have, then we'll go over here again. I think that'll probably be, we're out of time, so we'll come to you next, okay? This one here, first this gentleman here, and then we'll come to you.
Do you think your relationship between your teammates would have changed had you won the 4 Super Bowls?
You know, we always talk about that. We always talk about that. His question was, do I think our relationships would have changed had we won the first Super Bowl? And like I said, we're a very tight-knit group. And so we always talk about, you know, well, this guy wanted this type of endorsement or this type of contract. We always wonder about, had we won one, would our lives be in it differently? And when we talk about it, the answer is no. No, we still would be just as close as we were today. I can guarantee you that.
One last one here.
Sure. You probably answer this question all the time, but considering the 6 pillars that we talked about earlier, in Super Bowl 25, when you were poised to win the game and be the MVP, and you're marching down the field, and you know the kick went to the wide right, whatever.
Yeah.
How did you guys react after to the kicker, Scotty Norwood, and how did he react with the team, and how did you guys treat him after?
We acted like it was just a game. I mean, I have never heard, we have never heard, as long as we've been teammates and fellow teammates, all the guys that played in all 4 Super Bowls, we have never heard anybody say that Scott Norwood lost that football game for us. That's just the way, that's just the type of team that we had. I mean, it was, hey, don't worry about it. We'll just come back next year and win it next year. I mean, that's how our mindsets were. And Scott comes back to Buffalo, to Jim Kelly's tournament all the time. People love him. You know, people don't say I'm sure there's people that say bad, but when they're around us, they don't say anything. They don't say anything. And yeah, he lives in North Carolina, doing very well with his wife and 3 kids. Yeah, obviously it's a tough time. You know, actually when Super Bowl comes around, you know, it's always the topic of conversation, Scott Norwood. But as far as Bills fans and former Bills players, no, we just lost another game together. We never pointed the finger at anybody. Yep.
Well, that's all we have time for today, and appreciate everybody's attention and great questions. And let's hear a nice round of applause for Thurman Thomas.
Thank you.